The early
That's a
sun
good one.
had just begun to rise above the horizon, spreading a gentle golden glow over the quiet roadside diner. Wisps of steam curled up from coffee mugs. The deep growl of engines hummed through the crisp morning air, carrying the scent of gasoline, bacon, and leather around the group of Hell's Angels bikers who had stopped for breakfast. They looked intimidating, the kind of men people would cross the street to avoid. But beneath those heavy vests were untold stories no one had ever cared to ask about. Their laughter rang out, echoing off the chrome of their motorcycles, until a sharp, desperate scream tore through the air and shattered everything. Everyone froze. A small figure in a red dress was sprinting across the parking lot, her boots sliding slightly on the cold pavement as her tangled light brown hair streamed behind her. Her face was smeared with tears and dirt, and fear cracked through her trembling voice. "Please," she cried, arm outstretched, finger pointing back toward the road. "They're hurting my mama. Please, somebody help her." The group went still. The sound of her sobs was so raw that even the engines seemed to go quiet. A couple of truckers near the gas pumps turned to look, but no one moved, except for one man. If you believe in compassion, in second chances, in people who still rise when the world turns its back, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Tales Stories, because what happened next might restore your faith in humanity. The man who stepped forward was Ethan Cole, a broad-shouldered biker in his late 30s, his jacket stitched with the red and white emblem of the Hell's Angels. He'd seen plenty in his life, fights, betrayals, blood, but never a child like this. Dropping to one knee, he steadied her shaking hands. "Where's your mama?" he asked gently, though his voice still carried that rough, gravelly edge. The little girl could barely speak through her sobs, but she pointed again down the two-lane road toward a cluster of worn trailers half hidden by trees. "They're beating her," she wept. "Please help her." Without hesitation, Ethan rose to his feet, his expression turning fierce with purpose. "Tank rider with me," he said, motioning to two of his brothers. The three men swung onto their Harleys, engines roaring to life, tires screeching as they sped down the road. Dust and wind whipped around the diner, leaving everyone behind in stunned silence. The little girl, still trembling, was carried inside by another biker, who wrapped her in a leather jacket to keep her warm. She sat by the window, wide-eyed, watching as the red taillights disappeared into the distance. For nearly 5 minutes, the road remained silent. Then faintly, chaos drifted back, angry yelling, a woman's cry, and the roar of engines cutting through violence. Ethan and his crew had reached the trailer. What they found inside would stay burned in their memories forever. A drunken man, furious and unhinged, had cornered a woman against the wall, his fists already bloodied, his voice slurred with rage. A small, cracked window let in a sliver of sunlight that fell across the woman's terrified face, bruised and swollen. Before he could strike again, heavy boots thundered across the floorboards. Ethan caught the man's wrist mid-swing, twisting it hard until the bottle he held slipped free and shattered on the ground. The other bikers pinned him down easily. No talk, just action. Ethan's tone was cold. Then he turned to the woman, his hard expression softening. "You okay, ma'am?" he asked, his voice trembling with controlled fury. She nodded weakly, tears rolling down her cheeks. Outside, the faint sound of sirens began to echo in the distance. A neighbor must have called it in. When the police arrived, the bikers didn't flee. They stood quietly in the yard, hands raised, the little girl clinging to Ethan's leg. The woman, Carla, stepped forward to explain everything. The man was her ex-boyfriend, freshly out of jail, who had tracked her down that morning. As the officers led him away in handcuffs, Ethan crouched beside the little girl, Hannah, and spoke softly. "You did good, kid. You were brave." Then he walked her back to his motorcycle. Together, they rode back to the diner, Hannah perched on his lap, clutching a helmet far too big for her small head, as the sun climbed higher into the sky. When they returned, a small crowd had gathered. Truckers, travelers, and locals waited anxiously to see what had happened. As soon as they saw Ethan carrying the girl unharmed, her mother walking slowly behind, bruised but alive, every conversation stopped. For a moment, the world went completely silent, as if no one dared disturb that fragile peace. Carla's voice quivered as she thanked the bikers again and again. "I didn't think anyone would come," she whispered. Ethan looked at her and replied quietly, "She made sure we did," nodding toward Hannah, whose cheeks were still red from crying, but now glowed faintly with relief. The diner owner came outside with blankets and coffee, offering them with quiet kindness. One by one, the Hells Angels removed their jackets and draped them over the mother and daughter, a gesture so pure that even the police still standing nearby looked away in silent respect. The patch on Ethan's vest gleamed under the sunlight as he knelt to speak to Hannah. "Take care of your mama now, all right?" he said softly. "You're her little guardian angel." The girl nodded, her tiny fingers gripping the edge of his sleeve. News of what had happened spread quickly. By lunchtime, half the town had heard about the little girl who ran to the bikers and how the Hells Angels didn't hesitate. Strangers stopped by the diner to shake their hands, thanking them for acting when others froze. Ethan wasn't a man of many words, but when someone asked why they'd done it, he simply said, "You don't ignore a cry like that. Doesn't matter what patch you wear, some things are just human." Over the next few weeks, Carla and Hannah began rebuilding their lives. The local community pitched in. People offered furniture, groceries, even a small apartment in town. Every Sunday, a few bikers could be seen parked outside, checking in, bringing food. Sometimes just sitting quietly at a diner table with a cup of coffee and the sound of a child's laughter filling the room. Months later, when spring returned and the frost had melted away, Hannah drew a picture with crayons, a row of motorcycles, a little girl in red, and a man kneeling to help her. One morning, she ran up to Ethan outside the diner and handed it to him proudly. "This is us," she said with a smile. Ethan looked at the drawing for a long time before carefully folding it and tucking it into his vest. "That's coming with me wherever I ride," he said. "If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Tales Stories, because sometimes the toughest hearts hold the deepest kindness. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were one of those bikers?